Okay, so we're back with the George Joestar light novel. Super excited. Actually, I'm not. I'm not excited because, but I want to do that. I want to keep going because I've heard this thing sucks. So I'm gonna keep going. If you got hold on for one thing. I'll be right back. I need to get my phone so I can look at the chat. Hold on. Give me a sec. Dude, that didn't take that long. That didn't take long. Just get up and get the stupid phone. Should have had it with me. Had no preparations for this. So, see how weird this is going to end up being. So, first of all, let's go to. There we go. All right. So, pull this up. I'm going to do a little recap here. So, in the last episode of George Joestar, I'm still not done with the first chapter because I'm a freaking loser. Uh, so this is so weird. So, I mean, it's JoJo, so it's gonna be weird, but it's how it has to go. So last chapter it goes through George Joestar's character. He's I don't know. This is not canon. He he's a crybaby, and he has to rely on Lisa, who lives. She's living in the same house as Arena and George. So they're like, and they're kind of they're Lisa protects George, so she has to. And then one day, but George is like getting shit put in his mouth, according to him, by by these. First of all, they're in like some Spanish country. I think they're in Mexico, and Spanish kids and the Mexican kids come up and put shit in George's mouth. Like, I'm not even kidding you. And George flips out and he's like, I don't want to go to school on the same route that these kids are going to, so that he's like trying to avoid that. And Lisa beats the shit out of him and whatever. And then apparently one of the Mexican kids got killed, and everyone's like, oh my god, who killed him? And then blah blah blah. A bunch of situations happen, and apparently Lisa uh killed him or something. No, actually, it was a vampire, and we don't know who that. It was like his dad. His dad killed him, and he was a vampire. And then Lisa kills the vampire, and George Joestar gets hurt. And throughout this entire thing, there's this other kid named Tsukumojuku who's like a Japanese kid, and he's like a detective, and this is super fun, and they're having a good time. So and Tsukumojuku's like, I can't do anything right because I failed at being a detective. Okay, so let's keep reading. I stopped with the Tsukumojuku going, no, I think I have no need of modesty. I'm confident that lack of modesty will never be a problem for me. So everything always goes your way and you know it will? Yes, I think we're getting somewhere, Tsukumojuku said, watching me intently. My certainty comes from that. I don't believe that the word was made for me. I know it was. I'm not talking about the small boost in confidence that comes when things are going well for you. I mean, I was chosen by the god of this world, and I know that I was. That's why I can call myself a detective without a trace of shame, and and have that the cause of no problems at all. Well, you've been very lucky, but I don't see this is a bad thing. We're drifting away from the point again, so let me say this, George Joestar. I've been playing the role of detective all this time, and I know exactly how it feels. Something like this cannot occur without the arbitrary will of a god. I have something watching over me. Something like a god, yet not God. Haha. So people do say God is with us. Gods do not care about the individual. They don't play favorites. Even if they do give someone a role to play, they will not manipulate matters to the point of disrupting the natural order. What I have is this power of a god, but one that works only for me. Let me say exactly what I mean. Say that I'm Sherlock Holmes. Then I'm certain that I have something outside of this world serving as my Arthur Conan Doyle. I am certain as I am certain that I am a detective, and I have a name for this guiding me from somewhere not of this world. I call it beyond. Shit, he's a stand user. He was delusional, I thought. He was too smart, too successful, and got carried away or genuinely sick in the head. Or his natural modesty had just been repressed and twisted until he had to believe in this guardian. Tsukumojuku wasn't done spouting nonsense. But here I am, speaking in the present tense. I almost said present tone. When really this is all in the past. Like I said at the start, I no longer have the certainty required to call myself a detective. My beyond has abandoned me. I'm still me, but my role in this world is no longer guaranteed by Beyond. Beyond has chosen a new protagonist for this world, for this story. You, George Joestar, this is the last thing I'm certain of. Huh? What in the... And the only reason I need to be sure it's you because I'm jealous of you. I would never have imagined that it could be this terrifying to have the reason for your existence snatched away. I've never had the thoughts like these before. It really drives home just how much I took for granted my position and the peace of mind it brought. Certainly, sure I had my rough patches and things happened that were sad or painful, but as long as I fulfilled my role I was satisfied, and a life filled with satisfaction is something to be grateful for. I know that much, even at 11. And because I'm 11, I'm a little jealous that you stole my position. I'm just a kid, after all. I was pretty sure that I wasn't to blame for whatever he was accusing me of. But beyond that, it makes no sense. So this means I have to become Sherlock Holmes and act like a detective instead of you? I asked. He blinked at me. Ha! No, I doubt it. Your story already has monsters and mystic powers in it, so I doubt you'll end up being a detective. He chuckled. I think you'll play the character George Joestar in a story called George Joestar. Sure. Normal then. Normal then. I planned on doing that anyway. Tsukumajuku gave me a very serious look. That'll never happen. With Beyond at your side, your adventure will be without compare. Let me give you one piece of advice. You should believe. Remember that. Believe in Beyond, and you will overcome your fate. He made it sound prophetic, but I couldn't take it seriously. But I did become friends with Tsukumajuku. Pretty much by the end of that day, we'd become best friends, like I'd always dreamed of having. We talked about everything. My stories were always pathetic, but the tales of Tsukumojuku told of his adventure were highly entertaining. He was Japanese, and his name could be written in kanji. The kanji were used were the numbers 910, 910, and 9. Even in Japan, nobody else had a name like that. He had been born in Fukui Prefecture, in a small town called Nishiakatsuki. Oh, Naruto, dude. When he was 3, his archaeologist father took him to Africa, and when he was 5, he came to the Canary Islands. This is not even fun. It's not bad yet, though. When he was 6, he began working as a detective, not just in the Canary Islands, but on the Spanish mainland too. He'd even been called away to Egypt to solve a mystery. The cases he'd solved were as bizarre, roll credits, as he'd promised, and after solving so many incredibly complicated cases, I could see why he'd start to wonder if some kind of god was on his side. I never did go back to school. Instead, I spent all of my time playing with Tsukumajuku. It was also almost time for Lisa to leave, but I was so busy enjoying friendship that I'd barely spoken to her in weeks. I'd expected to be sad, but it was starting to look like a tearless farewell. Straits and his mysterious companion came over for dinner and ate and drank a lot. Mum cried, and Lisa seemed to be emotionally uninvested as I was. She just told everyone, "I will follow my destiny." And I didn't really try to talk. And she didn't really try to talk to me at all. I wasn't happy to have to go, but I had a new friend, and Antonio Torres was no longer around to torment me, so I was no longer worried about the future. I figured Lisa was glad she didn't have to protect me all the time now. I didn't tell her that, though. What I did say was this. After the big noisy dinner, after the others had taken their drinks to the cigar room or the terrace, I heard a voice call my name, and turned to see Lisa standing there in her green dress. "Hey," I said, and then didn't know what else to say. I knew there was a lot I should say, but none of it seemed right. "Since I was a little girl, I've always wondered why I wasn't a Joestar," Lisa said. "I wished I could have been. Then Mama Arena would be my mom, and you'd be my little brother, and I'd be your bigger sister." Mm. Mm-hmm. But as I grew older, I started to maybe it was better this way. Why? Would I have made things harder for you if you were my sister? She laughed. I hadn't seen her smile in a long time. "Don't be stupid, George. What? No. What do you think, George? Would you want me to be your big sister or your sister? I can't even imagine it. I don't know what to. I wouldn't. I don't know what to think. You'll always be Lisa to me." This was true. The idea has certainly crossed my mind, but I just couldn't imagine a world where she was really related to me. And it had never occurred to me to wonder if it was a good thing that she wasn't. "Good," Lisa said, smiling. "What? Well, if we were brother or sister, then we couldn't get married. Huh? I don't get really get love or any of that stuff yet, but I am glad that I could marry you. Married to Lisa? I can't imagine that, I blurted out. That wasn't something to admit to any girl, least of all Lisa. Heh, you're so rude, she said, laughing. I love you, Lisa, I said quickly. I had no idea why I said that. Me too, George, I love you too. What were we talking about? We went to bed and when we woke up in the morning and went to see her off, she just waved at me. And I can't remember if she said anything else. Mom and I went back to the house alone and I went out to play with Tsukumojuku. In the new year, Tsukumojuku and I both turned 12. Being with him, we often encountered mysteries, and just in the Canary Islands, I got mixed. Okay, they're in the Canary Islands. I got mixed up in no less than three serial killer cases. What the heck? I can still do the detective thing just fine, Tsukumojuku said, scratching his head. But he was really smart, and I couldn't even manage to be as useful as Watson. When we were 13, we solved 15 locked room mysteries. If he's a stand user, it makes sense. And when we were 14, we captured two serial killers. We were 15, we discovered the 15 room mysteries from 2 years before, were actually the work of a single criminal. His name was Yoshikage Kira. He wanted to silence and capture the real killer. But by we, I mostly meant Tsukumojuku. I thought we might would spend high school in the same way, but shortly after capturing the killer behind the 15 locked room mysteries, Tsukumojuku had to go back to Japan, and I cried a lot. I really didn't know how I could go on alone. Ha ha ha! Well, that's where Beyond comes in, he said, standing on the docks. I hadn't heard that word in a while. This isn't funny, I said, but I knew he never joked. I'm serious. Do you remember what I said the first time we talked? The thing I told you to remember? Believe in Beyond, and you will overcome your fate. I did, but I wanted to focus on how unhappy I was to be saying goodbye to my friend, and only friend. Crap. I just read it as him. Uh, and I didn't want to talk about that crap at all. There was no point in talking crap about how I was the protagonist of my own life here. I just didn't want to say goodbye to this handsome detective who'd solved so many mysteries with me at his side. I'll come to Japan someday. I'll come find you, even on the other side of the world, and we'll solve more cases together. Or he'd solve them at any rate. I kind of get the feeling that won't happen, Kutsuka Mojiku said, laughing. He couldn't believe it. He had no tact. I couldn't believe it. He had no tact at all. No, I'm coming, I insisted. If Beyond wills it, he said. He said, gave me a Japanese dictionary, got on a ship, and sailed away. 3 days later, the boat carrying Tsukumo Juku, oh no, vanished off the coast of Florida. 5 days later, this reached the Canary Islands. I prayed every night for 2 months, but when the army found the boat at the bottom of the sea, I had to settle, feeling deeply betrayed. I cursed God and cried. I don't know what plan you had, but the price for stealing my friend was very high. He was my first and only friend. He was amazing. He should have been the main character. All right. Well, I mean, he was the main character of the first chapter, but I mean, that's beside the point. All right, we're going to chapter 2, and I think it's called Nishi Akatsuki, which is okay. Oh, so he moved. Okay. My name is George Joestar. I'm 15 years old and live in Fukui Prefecture, Japan. I'm English, but I look and probably am. What the hell is this? Oh, it's the Joji Joestar shit. Okay. And I look and I probably am Japanese. For some reasons I've never known, my Japanese birth parents were unable to look after me or never intended to do so. Without giving me a name, I was handed over to the authorities and adopted by the Joestar family. So I was given a name that could be either English or Japanese. According to Japanese law, when I turn 18, I'll have to pick either Japanese citizenship or English at the same time. I have to select a formal name. Currently, my official name is spelled out in katakana, with no kanji or Roman letter spelling set. The Roman letters in my passport read Joji Joestar, which is super lame. If I go with Japanese citizenship on my 18th birthday, I'll have to pick the kanji for the name, and currently I'm leaning towards the kanji for transferred and child. In keeping with the Japanese idea that one's name should describe you, but English, I'm trying to act like I'm Japanese now, feels like I'm pretending. I'm used to the katakana, and I don't really care what my Japanese name is. As far as the English name, despite the strong objections of my family, I'm dead set on George, so I write it like that anytime I get the chance. I'm not the least bit Latin, but my friends all call me Jojo. Oh, frick you. And I get called Detective Jojo a lot. But if I went with George Joestar, the nickname Jojo would be impossible. If nothing else, Joji wouldn't cause any problems with the nickname. But if I let any native English speakers read it, they'd never pronounce it right. Joji is a reading by four Japanese speakers. If details don't add up right, I get agitated and start searching for a better way. This trait has led to my room being very clean and made me a great detective. And that very trait is getting up in my nose right now. Something has been bothering me for a while and was coming to a head. This particular itch had been nagging me for the last couple of years, ever since I solved. Okay, so this is just like an alternate version of George. Ever since I solved 15 locked room mysteries in a row, but two serial killers investigations had distracted me for basically this entire year. But now that I've successfully caught the triplet dismemberment of the psycho Guru Guru Majin and had received the word that they'd finally tracked down the serial torturer Nail Peeler after Nail Peeler. After his daring escape 6 months back, I was finally able to relax. I made a full report of my escapades to my father, who, a victim of a particularly misguided attempt at selecting a Japanese-sounding name, was named John de Joestar. Then I went to bed, and finally remembered the source of my discontent, specifically a newspaper article that laid out the locations of the 15 locked room mysteries on a Makafukui prefecture. All those cases had happened in the northern half of Fukui, in the area called Reihoku. The newspaper articles numbered them in the order they'd been committed. In other words, the order of the victims died. This made sense from a news perspective, but my immediate thought was that it was totally the wrong approach to these particular cases. The trick to locked room mysteries lies in their discovery. The realization that the room had been locked from the inside is what defines them. The killer's job ends with the discovery. I made a mental map of them numbered in order of discovery. Something about this map had been tickling the corner of my mind for a while now. This is interesting, but I have a feeling this is gonna suck. I've heard a lot about this. Not gonna lie, and it seems normal JoJo for now. Uh, 36 cars on Mars. Something about this map. Okay, let's see. My first thought was that the locations were drifting slowly south. Each of the 15 cases had a killer, and we'd found no links between the killers, the victims, or any other aspects of the cases. But the cases did occur more or less from north to south, moving like a cold front across the map. Fukui's Reihoku area wasn't terribly large. 15 locked room mysteries happening in rapid successions was enough to make you wonder if the urge to commit a room murder was somehow communicate communicable. An outbreak of the locked room murder syndrome. I have vague memory of some expert suggesting as much on the news. Maybe it worked like dismemberment. It was a known fact that once the idea of entered the public consciousness of that cutting up your victim made it easier to carry, to hide the body, and to throw investigators off the track, we saw a sharp rise in the number of mutilated corpses. But if that was the case, the influence would not have spread to the whole country. Oh my god. And the trend would not have died out after only 15 cases, but it had. As far as I knew, in the years since the 15 cases, there had been no locked room mysteries at all. This 15 were an isolated group. They looked like they had no connections, or someone was making them look that way. I opened the mental map again and stared at it. Was there a pattern that lay beneath the seemingly random spread? Some principle at work? Something beyond the general spread to the south, or a boundary, or border? These were locked room murders, and they took place in enclosed areas. If there was some sort of border around each of them, why had the word border caught my attention? Maps have an outline around them, marking the borders of the location or place depicted. Ugh. I felt sure the scenes of each crime weren't scattered at random, but carefully placed at appropriate distances, places far away from each other as the border allowed. But I couldn't see quite where the boundaries were. Why not? There had been no cases discovered in the city of Takefu, leaving a big white space, and that felt like it was getting in the way of me seeing the pattern. If this 16th case had happened there, then the map would make a lot more sense, I thought, and suddenly I saw it. That gap had its own borders, dividing the nap up the map neatly. A large 4x4 grid lay over the map. It had been right under my nose all along, but the blank space had blinded me to it. Looked at this way, I instantly know that the blank space, the empty square, was the key to everything. Jar Jar's the key to everything. Jar Jar, he's the key to everything. All right. This was a giant 15 puzzle. I solved the puzzle in an instant later. It was easy. I only had to move around each piece a single square. Each number was only one square away from sequential order. Since they moved in different directions, it appeared random, but order lurked right next door. Having solved this 2-year-old puzzle, I wondered what it meant. A 15 puzzle. If there was a puzzle, then someone must have designed it, and if it was hidden, that meant it was a message to whoever discovered it. Was someone trying to tell me something? When this flood of locked room murders uh, had happened 2 years ago, the police and I, of course, searched thoroughly for any connection between them and verified countless times that there was no such thing. Was there really someone directing all the individual killers? The trick they'd used were all different. No connections, no patterns, and we'd been unable to figure out exactly where the killers got all the idea to use the locked room trick. They all insisted that it just seemed like a good idea, and we had no choice but to take them at their word. I knew perfectly well the human imagination did not always have a clear foundation, and certain criminal actions could trend without any contact between the perpetrators. But the police and I didn't take the killers as their word, and had searched high and low for any indication that someone had helped them. How had we missed it? Had there really been someone who tracked down the would-be murderers and supplied them with plans for a locked room trick? There had to be. This 15 puzzle proved it, but we caught all the killers. I'd explained the case, and they confessed, explaining their motives and essentially turning themselves in. They'd been very cooperative with the police and prosecutors afterwards. Was this all a performance to protect the designer? What kind of person could inspire such loyalty in all 15 killers? This was no good. I couldn't started I could I couldn't started doubting the designer's existence now. Throughout the case, we'd been constantly of the opinion that there should be one, but the evidence said otherwise. That made it hard to believe. Even now, I know the truth. I had to stop. If this puzzle existed, then someone had to have made it. I had to focus on deciphering the message contained within the puzzle. I looked over my mental map of the puzzle again. A simple 15 puzzle, each number moved a single square away from the starting position. Starting from the blank all you had to do was move the number that belonged there into a gap and the puzzle solved itself. Checked the order of the moves again. Blank, 10, 14, 13, 9, 5, 1, 2, 6. I don't know what this means. Was this supposed to indicate a domino murder exchange sequence? If the victim from the 10th case was killed by the killer of the 14th case, and the victim in 14 was killed by the 13th killer, oh my god, if the killers had traded places along, allowing those with actual motives for the killing to establish alibis at the time of death and evade suspicion, would that make sense? Dude, this is boring as hell. Dude, I don't think I'm really into detective books, but I'm gonna keep reading. If the killers had traded places along with those actual motives for the killings to establish alibis at the time of death and evade suspicion, would that make sense? But in that case, there was no indication who could have killed the victim in the 15th case. If the domino murder exchange were to complete, the murdered in case 10 would have had to kill the victim of case 15. But that wasn't shown anywhere in the puzzle. Uh, if I was to correctly read the implications of this puzzle in terms of domino murder exchange, the 10th case's killer would have killed. Okay, I'm going to find a place where I can keep reading. This is actually interesting. Uh, okay, no. I was trying too far hard to find the answers in this puzzle. The whole point of exchanging murders was to get yourself a cast iron alibi and keep yourself off the list of suspects. But in all 15 cases, the killers had been arrested, confessed, sent to the courts, and were starting to stand trial. With the possible exception of the killer in some hypothetical extra case that might occupy the blank spot. Nobody got away with anything. If they had been so desperate to avoid suspicion, then they do something as risking as trade murders. They hadn't been caught a little too easily. No, 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 no. These 15 murders may have taken place in the relatively short time period of a year, but it wasn't like they'd happened all at the same time. They were spread evenly across the full 12 months. So the first locked room mystery had already been solved by the time the third one was discovered. The killer identified. The cases were steadily being solved as the new locked rooms were found. Um, let's see. It was absolutely impossible for the ninth killer to have actually committed the 13th murder, as the puzzle implied. By the time that case had happened, I'd already identified the killer in the ninth case. Oh my god, this is boring. How long is this going on for? Hold on, guys. I'm trying to see how long this is going on. 25 minutes? Okay, guys, I'm taking a break here. I'm going to come right back. I'm going to go get a drink. I'm going to go get a drink. So I'm just going to leave this here. Never taking a break from the stream. So you guys just don't leave. I'm going to keep reading. Alright. Hello, humans. I'm back. I got a drink. I had to write a note to my people telling them that I'm reading in a live stream, which is weird as hell, but I gotta make a note so they don't come bother me. Alright. Let me get situated here. It's boring. I've been told by one person to keep reading this, and I'm tired of it already. So if y'all want to figure out, if you guys other than like one of my friends want to keep watching this, just tell me, because this is really boring. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna end it now because I am bored as hell, and this is like really long. According to everyone, this is like 700 pages. So I'm just gonna get off here for now, and you guys can settle for maybe another video later because this is really long. I will go ahead and end it off here, and if you guys want to keep seeing it, just let me know. If I don't see anything, I'm probably gonna stop. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day.